1, 2, 3.
While our weekly shows are edited to time for broadcast, our member supporters get early access to select full uncut conversations like this one, featuring world-renowned conceptual artist, filmmaker, and human rights activist Ai Weiwei. Enjoy listening like you were there, live at the Laura
How
Flanders
do we
and
keep the
Friends
doors
taping.
of our
These audio
minds
exclusives are
open to
made possible
possibility
thanks
and
to you,
fresh
our
questions
member
in a time when
supporters.
so many avenues to peace, justice, health, and fresh thinking seem cut off or out of reach? In his recent graphic memoir titled ZODIAC, the world-renowned artist Ai Weiwei writes that artists have a special role. They should ignite stories, fight for freedom, and help us hope. Over his long, defiant career, Ai Weiwei has done just that, using his art in a wide variety of media. His works, such as Sunflower Seeds and Remembering, confront issues of censorship and human rights abuses in China. In a recent show, he asked questions of an AI chatbot, among which is there hope for peace? Ai Weiwei has faced censorship by the Chinese government and also in the West. He had a show cancelled not so long ago in London after he expressed support for Palestinian rights. In 2011, he was arrested at the Beijing airport and held for 81 days without charge. He's been living in exile since 2015. He's joining me today from where he stays now with his family in Portugal, and it is my great honor and privilege to welcome to our program Ai Weiwei. It is such a pleasure to have you here on the program with me, and I'm going to ask you the question that I begin all of our conversations with, simply to perhaps ground ourselves. Who or what is uppermost in your mind or on your heart as we start to speak today?
Well, at this moment, we cannot really erase the images of the people in Palestine. This is nobody can really erase those images. And we never had time like this, not in my life, and not in anybody's life. The images has been so massively covered and brutally showing in front of the public.
Yeah. You recently wrapped up a show which was screened in Piccadilly in London, where you asked questions of an artificial intelligence, an AI chatbot. It was described as an 81-day quest for enlightenment. Can you describe that process a little bit? What brought you to that project, and did you get enlightened?
First, I think in the very critical historical moment, every answer need to be re-asked. And, we have to restart again with humanity, with very basic, essential questions. To ask question is the starting points to seeking for the truth and to find out who we are. And very often we forget to about those answers. So I use the possibility to ask the questions to AI. Happen my name, a little bit familiar with AI. So yes, they both give answers. I would give answers before AI gave the answer to see how much it matches and how much difference we have. And I think that is the point everybody need to ask a question or ask dozens of questions about who we are and where we are going.
And did you get enlightened? How did you compare with AI?
I would say AI does 80 to 90% of the job. The answer could be matches in many ways, but there's one need the individual thinking or to make judgment. I think AI is not capable because AI is just collecting information.
The other thing, AI is not Israel in terms of living in a body with a human type physical experience. Your 81 questions, of course, based on your 81 days of imprisonment. How do you think those days changed you? And now, do you think of yourself as free? Do you feel free?
I never feel free, no matter what, in the this kind of confinement or outside the confinement. The inner struggle is not just with the existing condition, but also within ourselves. How do we make judgment? How do we make a move or not make a move? So those things are really we have to ask every second.
Yeah.
So in that sense, freedom is only intention to get free, but rather you can never really achieve it.
We asked some of our viewers and listeners their questions for you before this conversation, and one of them wanted to know whether you were born an artist or whether there was a precipitating event. Like, what made you an artist, makes you an artist, do you think?
I'm an artist in making since my birth, and I still think I haven't achieved it. I don't know if I ever can achieve it.
You write a lot, though, about the function and the role of the artist. In Zodiac and elsewhere, you've addressed this question. What do you think is your job?
I think that my job, there's a job, and even I've never been really hired, but still there's a duty. Duty means relate to if you think you have any rights, you would have a responsibility, and you have to pay for whatever you get. You know, I'm a person. I eat well. I've been treated very well, and even with all those difficulties, still I consider we all lucky. We all get more than we deserved. So who is going to pay in that? I think all the thing I can do as an individual is defending humanity and defending basic human rights, freedom of speech. Those things are so crucial, not just to me, to every individual, the people privileged or not privileged, the people not even educated, they would have the integrity to live with dignity. So I think that is a value we always have to feel we have this responsibility to defend.
There's something about artists, though, that very much scares and concerns certain sorts of governments, particularly dictatorial ones or authoritarian ones deeply invested in control. What is it, do you think, about artists and what they do that so concerns those kinds of regimes?
I think we always think we were born free, but that is not true. Our education, our sense of safety, or we have to behave like the others. We have to, get by with this kind of mainstream, how do you say, this kind of um, ideologies or propagandas. So there's all different kind of censorship. Some are very obvious, like in the authoritarian states, they are clearly tell you certain topic you cannot talk about. If you talk about, you touch the red line, and you're dead. You're not going to survive. So it's very clear. But I gradually found out in the West, in the so-called democratic society or land for freedom, which we also have a lot of taboos you cannot talk about, people avoid talk about, not just in ordinary situation, but even in the bar or in the coffee shop. If you mention certain words, people would be quiet or to say they just don't want to talk about. So that remains a huge problem in university, in education, in mainstream media. That means we are not encourage people to have a free thinking and judgment. And that is the ground to produce Nazis or hypocrites. And that can come to political disaster. And of course, we see a lot of political disasters, one after another, in very different locations. Very surprising, but still, it happens. Why? Because we have this kind of censorship.
Right.
Because people cannot freely express their feelings.
So I'm hearing then that the role of the artist is to shove us out of our complacency, nudge us out of our kind of go along self-censorship?
Artists are privileged in the way because they have no job. Nobody hears them. They don't get paid anyhow, unless they are so crazy about their fame or to make some kind of strange amount of money.
Yeah.
So basically, the role of artists is about free thinking, and it's about making mistakes, because the mistakes, the consequence is only you will pay for the mistakes. It's not you let anybody else to pay. That's the privilege of artist.
Wow.
That means you're free. You have much more space. But in today's society, it's not true, and most artists, I would say, are so much worried about their reputation, about be accepted by large institutions or exhibitions, or so, and to be collected. So those issues would affect their would guide them not
Yeah.
to express their inner ideas,
We
which
we have some of the same problems with journalism. But we can get to that. I hear your father in a sense. I think of him and you want to tell our audience a little bit about him. If he looked at you today and heard you talking about freedom, what do you think he would say? I mean, he experienced government suppression very clearly. You're talking about something a little more subtle, perhaps. But what would he be surprised by the situation we find ourselves in today?
I think my father lived his life under very strong political censorship, and he paid his lifetime for that. He was exiled, he was in jail, not for 1 year, but over 20 years. And I grew up with him. I don't think he will be surprised for me to fight to defend the freedom of speech. And I think he would be proud if he knows I'm doing that. But of course, he will be worried because he knows this kind of condition. In most cases, you cannot win. You can express your feeling, of course. You may be right. People may feel you're right, and they support you, but you very often you cannot win. I think that's the case. That's why people are in a way sophisticated, so they will not do it.
He might be surprised that so few artists really use all the freedoms that they have in the way that you do. You famously have criticized government, and you've faced government censorship and persecution in China and globally. And you've produced works that criticize governments in the East and the West. Do you have an ideology yourself? Do you feel yourself aligned with one ideology of or another, or do you think of yourself more as a kind of lone voice?
I I would say that any ideology I defend is not for myself. I think it's a good gift to the society, and it belong to everyone, especially belong to the people who have no chance to speak out.
Yeah.
And of course, there are a few artists like Laurie Anderson, like a few very good ones, and they are pure, they are innocent, they're not sophisticated in the political thinking, but they trying to protect what is right and what is wrong. And like Nan Gordon,
And Golden.
those kind of artists. And I would say they are brave. They're only in the brave of in the way they are willing to sacrifice. I think anybody willing to sacrifice can be considered as a brave.
Nan Golden, the photographer who's waged a very strong campaign around the pushes of opioid addiction and the Sackler family's investment in the art world.
This is the full uncut conversation with world-renowned conceptual artist, filmmaker, and human rights activist Ai Weiwei. To explore more interviews on the power of art as a mechanism to advance freedom of expression and social change, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. There you'll find our art and media playlist that includes episodes like Armed with Art, Taking Down the Wall of Whiteness, Survival Guide for Humans, Learned from Marine Mammals with Alexis Pauline Gumbs, and many more.
How do you decide what issues to focus on? In the world today, so many. We started by talking about those images from Gaza. How do you decide to work on subjects of migration or incarceration, or as you did, the naming of the children killed in the earthquake in Sichuan?
Very often, I cannot decide. I'm not a good person to plan or to have a goal. And I made my my comment, or it's kind of commentary only because those topics I cannot avoid to escape from. Very often, people would ask me, "What's your opinion?" So I have to honest to give out my opinion. I cannot say I don't have any opinion about it. But I'm not this kind of very active activist. I'm just being forced to act, and I think I'm being pushed to speak out, and but I'm proud of doing that because that is the meaning of life, to give dignity to life itself rather than anything else.
But you were pushed to focus on migrants, to
Yes,
focus?
I was migrants even in my country. My father was exiled, so we always being discriminated. We never had a place we can call home. So I always wondering why those people have to leave their home. It doesn't make any sense. Even if it's poor, they will not leave their home willingly. Just take their children, do all those risks across the ocean, and go to a land with no language, no religious similarity. And how can they survive? It's not possible. So I always wondering how that would happen. So that kind of curiosity leading me to want to know more about them and about how the other people look at them. What is the political policies or positions people handling those people?
When you made your film Flow,
Human flow, yes.
Human Flow, the migration, the numbers of migrants and people displaced, I looked it up, was like half of what it is today. And
Exactly.
you make the point that the number of borders was much more than it had been at the end of the Cold War, so-called, the bringing down of the Berlin Wall. Today, the question of home and homeland is up again. And I wonder, looking to Palestine, looking to Israel, looking all around the world as we see people moving and fighting for a place to call home. What is home to you?
Too late to find a home for me. I have been in China for a very long time, over 40 years. I couldn't call it home. I speak Chinese language. My father is the most respectful poet today. and I cannot call it home because we just do not have same kind of ideology and values we can share. And I cannot speak freely in a place, then you don't call it home.
Mm.
And yes, I've been in the United States for 12 years, then I've been in Europe almost 10 years now. I still feel quite foreign in outside China. So I would not think there will be a location I call home, but which is fine. They give me opportunity to know more difficult situations, and to know there's a lot of people, they're just not privileged. And the whole world are facing a dramatic change, and this situation getting more common.
Well, so maybe this is a positive, not to diminish people's right not to be displaced and forcibly moved, but we spoke to Angela Davis not so long ago, and I asked her about nations and nation states and whether this idea that we have of a nation state is maybe out of date, and we need to reinvent. And I think I'd ask you that same question. How do you relate to the idea of a state? You've been subject to the power of one. You saw your father be persecuted by one as well. Um, Maybe we need something else. Maybe we just need to call the planet home, or our friends, or family, or something, our art.
Well, I think sooner or later we have to recognize the planet is the only home because our fate are really bound together. With this dramatic change, either environmental changes, resource limit, and also war can be dramatically happening. So there will be rethinking about humanity as one and to rethinking about we are all share the same planet. And of course, the home, so-called borders, a nation often divided by the different historical impact, religion or race or different kind of development, different speed. But gradually, uh, those problems shows we have to have the unity. At least conceptually, we have to think humanity as one.
I think the birds where you are like what you just said because they started singing more loudly. Um, and I made me think of how often nature comes up in your work. What do you get from the animals that surround you, the relationship that you have to nature, and do you think of yourself? You're known for using a lot of technology as well. Um, how do you think of your relationship with nature in these times, and how does it express itself in your art?
I think I will feel ashamed if I talk about nature. We have so little time just to look at what is around us. Just grass or wood or birds or cats or dogs, whatever. There is so rich, and we have so little time. We have no patience, and we quickly rush our life away before we know all those neighbors and all those fantastic creatures. Even just anything. So we know so little about them. As human, we are too arrogant. We think we control the universe, which is not true. It's just we only have been here for a very short time, you know, as long as we don't ruin it, and we already very fortunate.
Yeah. How do you pick who to work with? You've collaborated with Laurie Anderson, as you said. How did that come about? Did you meet in New York in the 80s? And what have you gained?
Uh,
What did you gain? What do you gain from that collaboration?
talk about Laurie first. Uh, talk about Laurie, and in the 1981, I come to New York, and I was so attracted by this beautiful image. She is a really image maker also. She stand on a piece of ice and plays violin, all those things. And Superman, the sound are so different from anything I heard of. So she is a myth, is a mythology to me. And I would not say I love her because I'm as a foreign student, I don't even speak English. I don't think if I met her, she would, you know, but I would think she will be nice to me because she is nice to everybody. She's have such a sweetheart, and she is just like a little girl. And how can she survive? That must be something charming in United States culture in that time, 1970s, 80s. The people are still very innocent, very small group, and uh, not like today. So, but till very late, I was in detention, and we collaborated, talk about our motherland. And she talked about the United States. I told her I cannot do musical. I'm the person farthest from the doing anything musical. She said, no, no, you can do it. You just read it. I write lines, and she asked me to read. I read it, pretend I'm like a rock and roll star or something. But she broadcasted in Canada in front of thousands of people. And I think that is very encouraging. Someone, you just need another person or someone to make it's like they said, one hand, you cannot make a clap. You need two hands. So, but once you have two hands, you don't need a third hand. Two hands is enough.
But you do need some people with ears to
That's
hear
true.
to hear the clap. I came to New York from England in the early 80s and was in that swirl
Oh, yeah, yeah.
with Tashing Shea and with so much performance.
Mhm.
And I wonder now, is there a era of that coming again, but with technology? Will technology issue in a new era of creativity before it gets completely owned? Or maybe it's too late. Do you have hope or fear around technology or both?
Uh, in speaking of technology, I think that technology liberates people, every kids, every individual seems they are so much involved and so much drawn or by the technology. You cannot stop them. Everybody, it's impossible. It's almost become like air or water.
Mhm.
So, but what will come out of it, nobody knows.
Yeah.
And still, technology will not just develop as technology, but still need someone have a brain and have emotion, have a ability to make technology become humanized.
Yeah.
Technology basically is anti-humanized, have this kind of trend, but still it need to be employed by the right people, not by the wrong people. Still can be very evil, but can be very dangerous to humanity. So I don't know.
I think about the inventors, the US inventors of the airplane. And when they were asked, about their invention, they said they thought it would be a tool for peace because they thought once you could um, look into the backyards of your enemies' gardens, into the backyards of their houses, you wouldn't ever drop a bomb on them. But that's not how it worked out. Their contracts came from the Pentagon, or what became the Pentagon, and they were first used in war. So,
Thank you. You mentioned that. It's a very, very interesting case. Huh? Now we are not just look at their backyards, we look at their living rooms, bedrooms, and we use drones, even they're hiding somewhere. And so it's very different. It become a game-like world.
mm,
So in game-like world, the moral judgment disappeared. You just have the trigger to to trigger it. So
Laura Flanders and Friends asks the questions we need to be asking to move forward. While the commercial media is centered on what sells advertising, which is too often based in fear, we're centered on change makers, imagining a better world and creating the solutions to get us there. That's thanks to the generous support of our viewers and listeners like you. While we are independent media, we do depend on you. The cost of producing one episode for TV, radio, and as a podcast is roughly $25,000, compared to a half-hour public affairs show on a major network that costs in the range of $200,000. Please contribute by making a one-time donation or make it monthly. Go to lauraflanders.org/donate. As Angela Davis says, when vast numbers of people come together, this is how change happens. Please come together with us now. Thanks for listening, and thanks for your continued support. Now back to Laura Flanders with Ai Weiwei.
Well, so that gets me to this question of how do we all, maybe many of us don't think of ourselves as artists, but how do we work that moral judgment muscle? You talked about animals earlier, and you tell a story about a cat. One of your cats learned to open the door. And what's different about cats, you've said, is they don't close it behind them. And I think we have doors we have to keep open, even when we feel kind of hopeless. And I think a lot of people are feeling pretty hopeless these days. How do we do that? How do we exercise those muscles to keep our doors open to possibility, to morality, justice, etc.?
Yeah, it's very, very, very tender question. As human, we have to recognize we have a short time. We have to be humble. We have to feel we come to make a lot of mistakes. And as long as mistakes not hurting other people, but very often, the powerful state or authoritarian, they make mistakes by hurting millions other people and makes their life desperate and makes they have no future and no hope, hopeless life. So we have to stop that. And we have to go back to individual, defending our own rights to speak out the truth, make a right argument, and maybe nobody listen to us, but still that is essential for our life. And that's the meaning of life.
Do you have advice today to creative artists and others who've been facing censorship over their work around Gaza, around the tragedy affecting Palestinians today?
Things are so simple. Do we want to see our children, our families, or even friends to face in such a difficulty and not to say, hey, stop it. No war in Israel or Palestine situation, no war in Russian or Ukrainian situation or any place. Do not produce those arms. Do not sell the arms from the United States. Do not pay the arms from the United States. U.S. cannot supporting war anymore. It's a completely lost its moral ground, and it's like suicidal for the nation.
You paid a little price, at least, for just a tweet. There are others who faced much more.
What I did is nothing compared to, people I know in Gaza, they lost 20 members of their family. They're just journalists. And there could be a doctor and could be someone. And they have to argue about, hey, this is genocide. They have to argue. They don't want to spell out these words even. And they would say, okay, this is too much. Well, if we don't say that, can we look at the mirror? Can we look at ourselves? Who am I? And this can be totally wrong. We are still existing in this world, not speak out the truth.
Well, that, it seems to me, is the work that both you and Laurie Anderson have engaged in, is getting us as humans to ask the big questions. Who are we in this world? Speaking as Americans, we too have colonized nations. We too have committed genocide, and we're engaged in a all-out campaign against remembering or teaching any of that. To many people, not thinking about it and not knowing perhaps is more attractive than the questions that we need to be asking if we're to move forward. What fear do you have if we don't ask those questions, the right questions in the right way or often enough of us?
The real fear for me is we lost the ability to ask a question. We lost our memory. We lost our sense of caring, compassion, or we lost this sensitivity. We already become inhuman.
Do you think we're on the verge of that?
I think very much so. Always, there's a big part of the world they just cannot make right judgment. Then that will lead our whole humanity into disaster after disaster.
Hmm. What's your next work, do you think? Or what are you working on now? And I think you have another collaboration with Laurie Anderson in the works. Is that right?
Yes, unfortunately, she's so kind, always ask me to do something I'm incapable to do. But since I like to be with her, I collaborate with her.
What can you tell us about what's coming up?
She's doing a opera, and she asked me to play a role. So I tried my best, but I hopefully I don't destroy her opera.
Tell me it's not the ancient Chinese sage.
No, no, no. The stage is, Laurie, she is so intuitional, it's just so much a free spirit. And I don't even know what she's doing. No.
Well, I look forward to seeing it when it happens or hearing it. Um, Finally, or as we draw to a close, I just want to thank you for your work that has been so at the same time provocative and also humane. And
It's
I
so
want,
nice
yeah,
talk to you. It's amazing. I don't know you well, but you opened up and the conversation, the conversation, I feel it's very intimate and charming and very nice and come to the important point.
well, I love that. Do you think that we have a media that is good for helping us ask questions and appreciate provocations? And obviously, this is a loaded question, but are there places, perhaps in our media or in our social life, that give you hope, excitement, that you're cheered by amidst everything
I,
else?
I don't, I don't, I have a little excitement talking to you, but this is very small, real situation, I would say. I would say this is very rare because the mass media doesn't really even care about the issues you're talking about. So thank you so much for this.
Well, thank you. Please, the final couple of questions we have from our audience who were very excited to ask you some questions was about Zodiac, the book that
Yes.
draws on themes of the Chinese zodiac, and it caused some people to wonder whether you believe in fate or what is your attitude to fate.
I'm not, I don't believe in any religion, but at the same time, because I'm so lacking of knowledge. And still, I believe there's a mysterious force made what made me to be here is a miracle. And what will be even more miracle, they will take me away. And I think this is unbelievable. I appreciate every second of it. I don't think science can ever really solve this question.
We if we can relish the mysteries, we're in good shape. Another person asked, you have been sort of categorized and defined by others often, by critics of your work who say it's pandering to the West, by the Chinese government that says you're a propagandist and a counter-revolutionary. How in the midst of all of that have you created a sense of yourself, a solid sense of yourself, or have you? How do you define yourself when you've been defined so much by other people?
I think you have to focus on yourself and ignore any kind of, whatever people talk about you right or wrong. You just have to ignore it. And but to focus on yourself is already a very, very difficult job. You need to be physically, psychologically, or it's not easy for anybody. So
Although some of us perhaps do it too much.
it's true. You see often there's not much to be focused, but they did too much, and then they have a really harsh time on psychologically. You have
Uh,
to you have to remember and forget at the same time.
yes, that's it. Hold close and let go. You, on the personal side, I think it's extraordinary that there are people who relish your work, and relish what a rebel you are and how brave you are and defiant and breaking with power. And then they're very shocked that you had a child with someone who wasn't your wife. How do you make sense of that?
I love to have some situation I cannot control. And I would always I always how to treasure those kind of moment to totally lose control and to take the consequence and to be responsible. The most important is to learn to be responsible, and by to learn how to be responsible, you have to lose control sometimes.
I love that answer. You are in the process now of I'm imagining your next work. Do you think you'll be working around the topic of Gaza or climate?
No, I never really work this way. People ask me, why don't do this? Why don't you do that? But when they ask, I really start question why I have to do that.
Yeah.
Because the situation is much broader and much abstract. It's not about a child would not have a food today. Of course, that touches everybody, but it's so much bigger and so much deeper. What made the situation become so uncontrollable? Why people ignoring those very essential values and what they trying to do, what they trying to achieve. So those are questions I still cannot answer it. It's about the humans' ignorance or stupidity, stupidity, and also about uh, about something else. I have no idea. So it's such a complex world. But the only thing we can do is taking care of ourselves, be yourself, not to be messed up by the power. The power can come from everywhere. They will try to take part of you away, and they will make you less dignified because you cannot make the right judgment, or even they force you to make a wrong judgment. So very often it's like that.
We've been saying on this program, if we could just stop the bombing, we could maybe hear the pain of the Israelis, of the Jews, of the Palestinians, the Arabs. Can we just hear one another? It's very hard over the sound of the bombing and the attacks and the hostage taking.
It's so nicely you put it. I really appreciate it. Stop bombing, use real language, not to use force, not to use a super technology to kill. This is not going to be pretty and everything would have some kind of force and how to say under force. you would have a response. You have to pay for it. I'm sure the people would pay for that. They take so much life away. And it's not be good way, because still would be bloodshedding.
Well, we know in our own lives this plays out over generations and generations and generations. So, as you said, we don't have that much time, but at the same time, this may play out over much time. That takes me back to two questions around the cat and the doors, and then I think we're closing. The doors and the cat. One question is, which doors do you think we need to open, we as people? And the other one is, does it worry you that of your 40 cats, you said only one learned how to open the door? Did the rest just say, okay, well, that cat will do it? Or did they not have the right skills, or weren't they interested?
Well, this two question. First was relate to
What doors do we as humans need to open? We talked about keeping doors open. Which doors do we need to open and maybe walk through?
The first one is very philosophical. Do we need doors at all? Why we have to have doors? So it relate to security or territory or property. So that's how society are built up. But as our mind, I think all the doors need to be open. All the walls should be torn down because we are just a child, need a great playground. We don't need doors and walls. And but my cats, and they are so beautiful, but they are also inherited to have to live with human. And as human have their own regulations, which is very brutal. We often have to close the door, lock the door, and they just simply want to go to on the other side of the door. So, but really some cats, they just learn how to open the door. But most cases, they just have to stay there. They cannot open the door.
I think there's a metaphor in that too. Well, we have to close. I've loved talking with you. And I will ask you the question I ask all of my guests, which is, what do you think the story will be that the future tells of this moment, of now?
Well, that's since come to my mind as a blank. I think my future is now. You are my future.
I love it. Ai Weiwei, pleasure to talk with you. Thank you for spending this time with us.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. That was great.
Thank you for being so patient and so kind, and you're so lovely. Thank you.
I hope we get to do it again sometime.
I hope I am so fortunate to get to know you. Thank you.
Well, it's mutual. Thank you.
Bye. Yeah, bye.
We hope you enjoyed listening to Laura's entire uncut conversation with world-renowned conceptual artist, filmmaker, and human rights activist, Ai Weiwei. These audio exclusives are made possible thanks to our member supporters. Members receive early access to select uncut conversations like this one. Please consider donating. Our goal is to raise $25,000, the cost of producing just one episode for TV, radio, and as a podcast. And if you are a monthly supporter, please consider upping your monthly contribution by going to patreon.com/Laura Flanders and Friends. That's also where you'll find more information on this conversation in the episode notes post. That's patreon.com/Laura Flanders and Friends. And thanks again to all our member supporters.